I want to talk about some of the capabilities of this solution called Baselane, but I think it would be helpful to maybe give an explanation of what Baselane is specifically and who it's for, and maybe sort of the gap it fills in the marketplace.
Yeah, absolutely. I can take that one. So, Baseline is really the all-in-one banking and financial platform for real estate investors of all types. So whether it's short-term real estate investors, mid-term, long-term, and the market that we're really focused on, the customer we're really looking to help to manage their rentals, is kind of the independent landlord. So folks have anywhere, from a handful of properties to, 50, maybe 100 units, but really kind of the folks like yourself, Kirby, that have a small portfolio and are kind of doing this as independent investors. So not the kind of large institutional investors that Building or Yardi would serve with tens of thousands of units, but really that kind of independent investor. And what we do is really provide kind of a suite of three things. So it's banking, rent collection, and bookkeeping and accounting, all put together in one package to seamlessly operate together. And I can share a little bit of kind of the context of where I was coming from and the pain points that I was having in my own journey, and why I started the company for why is this actually useful and why does this make your life much easier. But basically, when I started off in real estate, much like Saad, I was actually kind of an accidental Airbnb host back in the day. That's how I got started, 6-7 years ago. I had my own apartment that I was living in, and then when I would go on trips, I would Airbnb it. That's how I got started. And even just having one Airbnb rental, what I quickly realized is it's a lot more complicated to manage than you initially think. You have the rents coming in from Airbnb, but then you have all of these costs that you have to manage, whether that's your cleaner, changing the sheets, the key handover, the property manager, et cetera. And then at the end of the year, as you know, and as most of your listeners are probably aware as well, you have to file the Schedule E, and you really have to track all of those expenses properly and make sure you're getting all of the right deductions. And then over time, I added a couple of more units, and I really just found I was spending a lot of time, much more time than I would have liked, managing the finances of my growing Airbnb business. And it really kind of got to a point where I knew the business was doing okay, but it was really hard to actually have a clear picture of the cash flow that I had at the end of every month and really know where I stand. And what I found myself just spending a lot of time constantly reconciling between my bank account at Wells Fargo, all these transactions that I was trying to keep track of in a bunch of different Excel sheets. It was kind of just all over the place. And prior to starting Baselane, I'd spent most of my career in financial services and tech. And I just really felt there was a better way to manage all of this. So the idea was, why don't we create a bank that is built from the ground up for real estate investors that puts all of this together, makes it seamless, and automates it. And really the goal of Baselane is to save landlords, save hosts, save real estate investors, save them time and money, and ultimately help you increase returns. So the way it works is you have your bank, all of the information, all of the financial data flows directly through your accounts at Baselane. You can connect the Baselane bank accounts one-to-one with Airbnb. So for example, the way I manage it, I create a virtual account for each property on Airbnb, on Baselane, and then I link those one-to-one with my properties on Airbnb. And then I have the revenue or the rents for each unit that I have flowing directly into the right Baselane bank account. Now I can see, okay, exactly how much is each property generating. And then I run all of the expenses through that Baselane bank account. And I can see essentially in real time how each property is performing at any given point in time. And then all of the accounting, all of the bookkeeping, all of the tax prep, it's all fully automated on the back end, basically. So it really reduces all of that kind of financial busy work. And that's the goal of Baselane and what we really help investors achieve.
Yeah, that's super powerful. I want to talk more about the financial aspect to it. But when I first heard that it was a financial platform, I was like, oh, it's something like QuickBooks or something like that. I didn't realize all the property management capabilities that it has as well, which I think are also super powerful. I think back to when I was doing long-term rentals, and I had a Word template document for my leases, and I'd just fill in the terms for that specific property, the address and the date, that they're the length of the terms of the lease and how much they're paying, that sort of thing. And then I'd meet with them physically and sign the lease. And there was a lot of manual work that went into that. But Baselane kind of automates this whole process from lease signing to rent collection, and even like the fee collection, is automated. So can you explain how that side of the process works as well?
I can take that
Yeah,
one.
you want to take that, Saad?
Yeah, I think the vision for the platform more broadly is to bring it all in one. So you truly have the financial management, which is, with the banking at the core, and all the property management together. And so I think also, before I guess answer your question, it can serve a couple of different types of investors. If you're a long-term investor, for sure, if you're doing midterm rentals like traveling nurses, you can use those features as well. In addition to that, we've also started seeing customers that are more direct booking type customers, with STR starting to come into the platform as well. And so there's a couple of core features that are already there and some that are on the roadmap. So we start with, adding a property, which is pretty simple. So anybody can really add a property. But you can, like you said, create a lease template. We plug in the Rocket Lawyer API and eSign product so that you're able to generate a lease for really any state in the US and have your potential tenants or guests coming in e-sign it on the platform, and you can save it there. That's the starting point. Then you can easily set up the lease in terms of rent collection and invite the tenants. That's a very easy process. I think it's like 5-6 steps. And then that generates a process for the tenants to sign up. There's a very simple, easy to use sort of dummy-proof tenant portal. And then tenants have the option to pay with ACH or debit or credit card. And so that's in place today. Our vision is to also make this more robust. Again, we talked a little bit about the saving time and money. The other thing that we're really trying to do in terms of core values is financial stress, is like help people gain peace of mind and get rid of or reduce the financial stress. And one of the biggest stress points, I'm sure is like you have to pay the mortgage. And so you have to make sure on all your properties that the rents are there or the revenue's in so you can pay the mortgage. And so one of the things that we built, for example, that is really a custom feature that really nobody really has is sort of a Amazon shipment model of where's my money. So when the owner or the landlord is looking to figure out, okay, what's going on this month, they can track exactly what's going on with the payment coming from the tenant all the way to their bank account. So those are the kind of features that we're building to really give that peace of mind. And then on top of that, in terms of what we're thinking about building our roadmap, there's a lot more coming there. So some things like faster rent payment options, more speed will be available, more flexible late fee structures, more flexible rent collection capabilities. There are different kind of like themes out there these days. You can see the trends. Some folks are starting to, want to pay weekly or biweekly, for example, instead of monthly. So we're thinking about some of those things. And also very important is to add tenant screening. So that's another one where we're exploring the ability to just, you've got the lease creation, you e-signed it, but we're going to take it one step back, have you get the application, screen the tenant, then do the lease, then you can do all the rent collection all in one place. That's a little bit of an overview of how we're thinking about bringing all of that together.
Yeah, and Kirby, you had asked, just to add to that, you had asked about kind of late fees, and I can also touch on security deposits, but that you can set that up all fully in the rent collection process. So whatever the late fee structure is in your lease, you can actually, as you're setting up the lease as a landlord in the rent collection, you basically can go in there and say, if the rent is more than 4 or 5 days late, charge whatever it is, a $25 late fee or whatever is stipulated in your lease. And then same thing for security deposit as well. Back in the day when, I was a renter, the security deposit would always be, you're basically, as a renter, you're writing a bunch of checks anytime you start a new lease. Here, this is all done by the Baselane platform. So you get as a tenant, you basically receive a very simple invite. It takes like 2 minutes to set up your tenant Baselane account. And then in there, you'll see the invoices for basically the rent payments. Then if there's a security deposit, that's also paid directly on the Baselane platform. And then at the end of the lease, it's basically, 1 or 2 clicks for the landlord to return the security deposit to their tenant.
Wow.
Yeah, one of the really important things on the security deposit part, just to finish up, is that you can create virtual accounts or different bank accounts where you park the security deposit. So it's really in a non-operational account. Yeah. That's like rule number 1, right? Most people, I think, like I didn't do it for a long time.
Yeah.
It's just separate the funds. Even if I knew that it existed and I had awareness of it, I just didn't want to open yet another bank account just to park the security deposit. So that's another feature. It takes like maybe 30 seconds to open the virtual account, and you can park the security deposit. Now, of course, we always encourage you to like understand your local state laws and make sure you comply with that. But that's been another one of those value add features. Again, giving you peace of mind, kind of educating you through the product and making sure you're set up the right way.
Yeah. Yeah, and so many of these features that you just described, from the payment tracking to the automated late payments to the separate account for the deposit, these are all things that don't sound like a big deal for one property. Like if you're just getting started and you don't have a property yet, you're like, oh, I could do all that manually. And then all of a sudden you have 10 properties and they add up quickly. All of a sudden you start buying, especially if you're buying these small multi-units, you have a lot of units and it becomes an absolute nightmare and a mess real quick if you're doing any of this stuff manually. So having it automated is amazing. Not having to talk to your tenants and say, well, this time I'll let your late fee slide, or you can, pay it on the 10th instead of the 5th. And then next time, what do you think is going to happen? So if it's automated, you make an agreement up front. It's, hey, I don't control the system. The system does what the system does. It's set up on the 5th. You can pay it or not. And then if you don't, you're getting a late fee or whatever date you choose. So I love all that, and the fact that it's automated. You mentioned lease signing and how it's attached to Rocket, what's it called? Rocket Lawyer. So I know leases are state specific. Do they create a state specific lease for you?
Yeah, so Rocket Lawyer, it is a very good platform. I think for me, I've actually used it for years. I've got a subscription to them. I use their legal services, and we're excited about that partnership. Again, I think one thing is that it's embedded, so it's seamless, and it's in the platform. You don't have to go anywhere else. I think the second thing is that the template actually handles all 50 states in the U.S. So based on where what you select in the questionnaire, they'll adjust the template for you. They also have some sections that are more, you can create custom sections in the lease as well. So if you want to type a new section or kind of copy and paste another template you had into it, you can do that as well. So it gives you some flexibility. Now, I always encourage people to, when you're starting out, have, some legal help with that. Make sure you have a lawyer look at that anyway, just to be sure. But absolutely, yeah, they cover all 50 states.
Got it. Okay. That makes sense. And I mean, the property management features alone, I think are well worth it, especially for the price tag of $0. But from the finance perspective, like I think a lot of people probably are using QuickBooks because their accountant uses QuickBooks, or some people use Stessa. Why? What's the reason to switch over? I mean, what are the capabilities that Baselane has that would make sense, to switch from using QuickBooks?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can take that one. QuickBooks it's a powerful platform, but it's obviously just created for general businesses, right? General small businesses. That's really like the core use case of QuickBooks. It is not set up out of the gate to actually manage real estate investments or rental properties. And ultimately, for the vast majority of investors, especially kind of independent investors, at the end of the year, the way that you have to report for your taxes, your rental income is on a Schedule E. That has very specific kind of predefined line items, basically of your revenue coming in, your rents, and then a series of deductions that you're able to take. If you were to use QuickBooks for that, you have to basically go and set it up to match that output that you're looking for as a real estate investor. So that doesn't come out of the box in QuickBooks. Moreover, if you have multiple properties within Baselane, we make it really, really easy. So one, it's all set up out of the gate to match the Schedule E. So there's no customization or anything that you have to do. It's ready to go out of the box, specifically designed to do the accounting as you need it for rental properties. Then secondly, it's all structured by properties. So you can really easily cut the data by property. Basically, for every transaction coming in, it is tagged automatically to a property and then also to a transaction category that corresponds to Schedule E. So all of this, it comes together and enables you to have basically like very easy, very quick insights into how you're doing. It makes tax time super easy. And then you can actually drill down at the property level and say, okay, property A, how are we doing? Property B, C, how are we doing at a by property level, which to achieve that in QuickBooks, it would require quite a lot of customization. So, when I think of QuickBooks for real estate, and I've actually tried it myself when I was initially trying to figure this out for my Airbnb properties, it just felt like it's almost like overkill for what you're trying to do. And it requires a lot of upfront investment, and a lot of time to actually make it work properly. So on one hand, it's kind of overkill. And on the other hand, it's actually not meeting your needs. It's kind of like you're putting a lot of time into it, and the output and the result that you get is kind of suboptimal. So, again, Baselane is built from the ground up specifically for this use case for your real estate investments. And then the other thing that I'd really emphasize on the accounting part is, you want to use accounting to manage your business proactively. Like, you don't want accounting to just be like the rear view mirror of how things actually went. And by building the accounting suite directly into the banking platform, as you're doing your day-to-day banking, as you're managing the rents coming in, the expenses going out, it's all being accounted for basically live. So you have real-time insights into how you're doing. And ultimately, like what does that drive? What did that drive for me? When I was doing this kind of retroactively initially in Excel, then I tried QuickBooks. What happens is you basically leave value on the table. You're forgetting to do deductions. You're missing expenses. And you just don't have a clear picture of how you're doing. Basically, this is all proactive, built into one place, and it really combines the banking plus the bookkeeping. And that's really the beauty of it.